Okay. So by way of introduction, Thorn Davis is a co-founder of Unit Network. He's a front-end developer. He has also had some stints as a musician. And he's here today to share with us how tokens give superpowers to communities. Promises to be a very interesting and insightful presentation. So please stay till the end.
So as mentioned, my name's Thorn Davis, co-founder of Unit Network. I kind of do several things, but mostly focus on documentation, some front-end design, some UI UX design as well. And as mentioned, I have also got a history as a professional musician, a record label as well. And what's interesting is this is actually sort of what got me into Unit in the first place. So this is me here with my band from some of our touring that we've done. And about 2-3 years ago now, actually, sort of around the middle of 2020, I was talking with the singer in my band about this idea of tokenization. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with this as you've been making your way through the course, but essentially this would be a way, or what we were really wanting to do was to allow our community to sort of share and participate in our success, and also to kind of be part of a closed economy wherein we can actually have people who can sort of be a part of the band without actually being in the band. So they can also get some kickbacks in terms of perks, where maybe we've got super fans that can be incentivized to come and hang backstage or whatever it basically is. But at the time, we weren't really sure exactly how this idea of tokenization would work, but crypto was really taking off at that point, and we were just sort of floating with this idea. And it wasn't until about a few months later that I met some of the co-founders currently working on Unit now, and realized they were sort of building the infrastructure that I was looking for to actually tokenize my project. And then fast forward 2.5 years, or nearly, about two years now, I've decided to join the project as well to sort of help this infrastructure get developed, and actually kind of create this vision of, oh, my light's gone, and help really kind of create this vision, because I think there's a lot of promise for not only projects like my band, but communities of all shapes and sizes. And so that's what I really want to actually talk about today with you all, is this idea of tokens and how they actually interface with communities as well, to sort of help also this infrastructure get developed. At the top here, we're going to follow these two trajectories. We've got tokens, and we're going to get into what they actually mean, at least for me, and then we've got communities. And so essentially we can see here that tokens ultimately are a way of defining ownership. They're decentralized by nature, and they're sort of powered by users and community. And so this is important to understand, because I don't think a token has any purpose if it exists completely outside of a community. I think they're basically a superstructure that interface with communities and allow them to do specific things. We can also see here that communities do have unique and specific needs. And they're also more efficient when they're small. And then there's also systems that you can build in to help them scale. But essentially, things can be more agile. And of course, communities also have shared incentives as well. So if we continue down this road, we sort of see that tokens as well facilitate streamlined transactions, in that they remove the need for middlemen, and also therefore third-party counterparty risk. That they're also anti-corruption, as tokens are inherently very transparent. You can go to the block explorer, you can see exactly what the token's doing and what a user is doing, interfacing with that token. They're secure with blockchain technology, and oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes they are deflationary. So this basically means that if someone is going to make a batch of tokens, it's not possible for them to just create more and more. And so this will be important to understand a little bit later on. But the communities essentially as well, therefore, encourage participation. They're dynamic and they are capable. If they have a shared vision, they can actually go and achieve this vision as well, which I think is very, very important. And then they have cohesive internal economies, all of which begin to start interfacing very well with tokens as we move forward. So tokens ultimately exist to improve upon antiquated systems. And so if we think about how value is transferred between people, communities, countries, businesses now, It might seem like it's very fluid, but what we actually believe is that it can become a lot more efficient, and we can remove a lot of friction of how value actually moves around in the world. Of course, communities benefit from improving antiquated systems, and they're always on the hunt to not only scale better, but to find sort of better systems of interfacing and sort of interoperability as well. And then communities, what I like to think of, tokens, what I like to think of them as is complementary currencies. So I don't think a token needs to replace the existing system. We're not here to try and reform the existing system per se. We're basically here to build an alternative system, and we allow people to kind of exit to a new system, because I think it's a lot easier and a lot better use of time to build something new than to come into something old and try and renovate the entire. And so we'll sort of be looking at this longer term. And ultimately, tokens also provide monetary resilience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all this to say is that I think tokens essentially are communities. And this is going to become very important moving forward. And so this is what we're really focused on with Unit Network as well, is because we're actually creating transparent tools that allow people to come in and to really see what is actually backing a token. So I think the days of tokens just going to the moon like Doge, which are backed by nothing except for hype, are going to be diminishing over time. And I think what we're going to really see is we're going to see tokens that are actually part of real world businesses and communities and projects that not only drive and create real revenue, but are actually providing some sort of value in the world. They're not there to just be pump and dump and to, make people millionaires overnight. So what I would like you to explore and to think about as well as you're also moving through the master's course is to think of tokens really as complementary currencies here. And as Steve Waldman has outlined, complementary currencies are historically deployed in the service of localism, of encouraging circular flow within a local economy into a more global economy. So what does this really mean? I think what we can really see here is that if, for example, we take my band, we can see that if we did create a token specific for my band and we actually created some sort of local or closed economy there, what we're really doing is we're capturing maximum amounts of value. So we can actually create systems where we don't have to raise money from record labels, and we don't have to use many different other sort of service providers to facilitate payments. We can actually do ticketing. We can do all sorts of stuff with tokens. And this means that most of the revenue is either getting captured by us or it's getting captured by the community as well. We don't need to have these third parties in the middle that are like scooping. And so ultimately, this actually helps drive a lot of value moving forward. And the same is also true for city tokens, for industry tokens, and for many other kinds of business tokens. Now, the idea of local currencies is actually not new. And so a lot of people are scratching their head at crypto and tokens in general, and they're kind of seeing like, hey, this is like, what is this new sort of innovation? Why do we actually need all of these different currencies? And this is actually a map here. This is pretty old. This is actually from the early 1900s, if I'm not mistaken. And what these dots are showing are scripts. And script is basically a local currency that was actually issued by a town or a city or a municipality over time. And this was done for a myriad of different reasons. This was, of course, when the United States was still within its infancy. But really what you can actually see is that a lot of these local currencies actually existed for the specific purpose of servicing a smaller community, a town or a city or whatnot. And what we're really trying to do with tokens and what we believe the future is going to be is that these local currencies are going to begin to exist again with the use of blockchain technology. And they're going to basically be tokens. But rather than being pegged just to cities and towns and municipalities, they can also be used for businesses or communities or projects. And now, because we actually have the internet and all sorts of other technological improvements, someone in Africa or Europe or South America can also participate in a community in any one of these countries. It's kind of like borderless business, which I think is a really huge opportunity to not only unlock a lot of capital and value that's held in the world, but it also allows myself, say, if I really believe in a certain cause or charity or project, I can actually now participate in a valuable way with that community, even if they're not within my locale. So one thing as well, which I think is really important, which is overlooked and comes back to my point about speculative valuations, is that to me, if a crypto or project doesn't actually move atoms in the real world, I think that it's kind of useless to a certain extent. It's not actually serving a real purpose. And what do I mean by this? So if I create a token and I'm just hyping it and I'm going on Twitter and I'm getting everyone to just buy it and I'm saying this is the next big thing, but it's not actually powering any sort of initiative or vision or getting people together in like an actual physical way of doing something of impact, to me, it's kind of like the technology it's sort of irrelevant. It doesn't actually need to get used and there's very little fundamental value. Now, I think Bitcoin is potentially an exception to this. However, what I think ultimately Bitcoin is going to be is sort of a digital gold, which is backing up and creating value for tokens. And so I'm not sure where you've exactly gotten to with this on your unit master's journey at the moment. But on you, the key things that we do, which is different, is if you create a token, you can actually back it up by cryptocurrencies that exist like Bitcoin or Ethereum or Polkadot or whatever. And this is important because going back to my band, for an example, if we were to give a certain portion of the revenue that we earn and actually lock it into the treasury of the token, this means that whoever holds the token is now actually getting a share in the upside of the business that we do. And it kind of creates this very positive feedback loop where our community are therefore incentivized to actually help the project grow because they're getting a direct kickback as well. And so this kind of process can be used for many different communities or businesses. It's definitely not exclusive to what we're doing. And I encourage you all to explore different examples as well as you're going. And I think this idea of crowdfunding in this way is really not new. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about Patreon and Indiegogo and GoFundMe and Kickstarter, and there's many others as well. But essentially what these projects actually enable you to do is to support a creative and independent creative, more specific, with whatever project they're doing. So for example, there was a guy who I really enjoyed. He has a podcast. He's like an Irish guy. And I sent him $20 a month via Patreon. But I really actually get nothing back except for the content that he continues to make, which is definitely a bonus. But imagine if he had a token system wherein I'm actually spending $20 a month on a token or some sort of subscription, and I'm actually getting these tokens back. And now these tokens can be used as a form of access to allow me to get into certain parts of his website based on how many that I hold. And if I really wanted to, I could even sell these tokens back in an exchange to actually return or to get back some of the value that I've spent if I so chose to. And to me, like tokens are really the sort of crowdfunding 2.0 or the next evolution of what these businesses are already building on or have already built. Because if I use any one of these services, I'm only getting back the specific service or the specific value that has been identified within or by the creator. I'm not really getting anything else that I can kind of use, anything dynamic. And so token is very exciting in this case as well. So for creators, tokenization evokes the ability to preserve and defend oneself and community against the vagrancies and disruptions of the world beyond. So what this is really saying is if, let me just keep using my band as an example, say we do have our token and it's creating value and we're actually sharing this value with the community. Now what actually happens is if, say, there's a big event in the music industry which disrupts a lot of services or whatever, we're actually insulated from this because we've kind of created a small little micro economy around what we're actually doing. And similarly, if you're a fan or a supporter or an investor in this token, you also still get to share in some of the value that we're creating. And so you can imagine that rather than everything being inside one big bubble, if the bubble pops, everyone gets affected. We've now got a system where we've got all these little bubbles which are still able to interact and communicate. But if one bubble pops, the rest are sort of insulated. And I really see that this is a very, very important part of the economy moving forward, sort of macroeconomic system. Because if we do see there's a big event that happens in the USA or Europe or whatever it is, we can actually have a lot of these communities, these towns, these businesses, which actually have some sort of insulation from direct impact. So yeah, I sort of touched on some of these examples before, but say for example, again, my band token, a holder of this token can basically, we can do token gated access. We can crowdfund releases, so we can raise money to actually make albums or market the music or go touring, whatever it is. And we can directly share the success with our supporters through the token because we can actually lock crypto into our treasury. It's verifiable. So I think this is super important because everything that happens, you can actually see. It's basically logged and recorded on chain. And then ultimately it's backed by real value as well, which means that if you wanted to sell the token or do something like this, there's actually a possibility for you to get some of the value back. It's not just speculative completely. Now, obviously, there are so many to do with the token. This is absolutely not an exhaustive list. But I just want you to start thinking about these different examples now, because the future that I really see moving forward is we're not going to be using these sort of clickbaity words like blockchain and crypto and all of this stuff. We're going to basically have an application that works. And I think 95% of people in the world don't care about how the underlying technology actually works. They just want something to work. Like, for example, I'm sure not many of, or if any of you even know like what the protocol to send an email from my mail client to your inbox actually is. And I'm sure you don't really care. You're just happy to know that the email works, right? And so I think this is where tokenization, where cryptocurrency, where blockchain really needs to get to. And the fact that we're not there yet, but this technology is not going away is a very, very important thing to understand, because what it's really saying is the technology is here to stay, but we're just very, very early. And we actually have a lot of improvement to go. And I think this is going to be down to user interface. This is going to be user experience. But ultimately, it's also up to us as the builders to kind of create a very compelling application that allows people to really unlock the value that's held in these different cryptocurrency ecosystems. So if you haven't already, you can obviously create your unit network accounts and you can start playing around. And if you want to, drop into our Telegram to stay updated, check out the YouTube for more info, and obviously jump onto the Twitter as well. If you've got any other questions, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me on Telegram or Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. And I'd love to stay in touch with you all as we're kind of moving through this. And if you're interested in following my journey, as soon as we're getting close to the point of actually creating our band token as well, you'll be able to see exactly how that works in the real world too. So yeah, with that, if you guys have any questions, please fire away. I'll be more than happy to answer. I know I kind of went through that fairly quickly, but nevertheless, let me know. I'll kind of go back here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simon. So everyone, if you do have a question, this is the time where you can put your question in the chat, or if you'd like to ask, you can let me know, raise your hand, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask your questions. Also, if you have any contributions or suggestions, feel free to chip in. If there's something you'd like to add to the conversation, you can do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe even if I can be a prompt, if I can prompt a few, what is it that you find most confusing? Here we go. Here's a question. Sorry.
So there's actually, okay, there's a question from Shimoda who wants to know how they could follow your ban process with the tokens. And there's a similar question to that that asks how and where are you building your token?
Awesome. Okay. So if you want to follow my band process with the token, you can definitely follow my band. You can, you can check us out on Instagram. Actually, what's the easiest platform for you guys? I'm not sure if you're using Instagram or anything like that. But we'll be sharing some updates there. Maybe even a simpler way is you can even just follow me, because I'll definitely be sharing some of these updates. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, these are my handles here. But essentially, we're probably looking at doing this within the next sort of 6 to 12 months. We obviously want to make sure that we do it right, because once you launch something like this, there's no going back. And we want to make sure that we really honor our community as well and do it right. So that would be the simple answer there. We're going to be using Unit Network to launch the token for sure. transparency and the ease of use that Unit Network offers as well. And I think this is a big one, because if we're trying to get our community to come and actually engage and interface with our token, we basically need them to actually have a very good time doing that, because a lot of people are still not familiar with how this technology works. And we want to ensure that the onboarding, which is like them getting the token itself, is a very smooth and seamless process.
So thank you, everyone. I think this is quite a short session. I do hope that you have gained one or two insights into how tokens supercharge communities. I like to say that if you have questions, please feel free to drop in your questions, because we are always able to forward your questions to people who can provide really great answers. So if you have any question regarding tokenization or any question bordering on what Don has said earlier, please feel free to ask. Tomorrow we'll be having another session where we'll do a demo on where we'll do a demo on how to actually create your first token and do it on the Unit Network platform. So I really look forward to seeing every one of you in that session, right? And if you do have anything to say now, please, you can unmute your mic and say something. Thank you. Anyone has anything to share? Okay, so if there's really nothing to share, I guess we can call it a day on this session and reconvene tomorrow for the demo session. So congratulations to every one of you who follow through the end of the 6 weeks program. I'm really proud of you, and I look forward to issuing your completion certificate. So see you all tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.